Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 11 of season 4 of Arrow called A.W.O.L. And I gotta say, this was a pretty solid episode. And it's nice to get a very Felicity centered episode. It was, a lot of ways, kind of a shared one between sort of Diggle, Andy, and Felicity, but it really was nice to see her very focused as one of the central characters in this Jeez Louise. Anyway, let's just kind of get right into things, and let's kind of get Felicity out of the way. Out of the way. So we get to see her apparently having like this really great hallucination due to the side effect of her medication, which I find hilarious. And I gotta say, once again, I love goth hacker Felicity, mostly just because they've obviously taken a few cues of her look from the way the character Death from the Vertigo comics looks. Especially like, I mean, the Ankh is a dead giveaway. And if you're a fan of 90s DC and Vertigo, it's hard not to share a great bit of affinity for that character. Plus, I mean, she was a Neil Gaiman creation, so how can you not love that? But yeah, I also really like that kind of conversation the two of them had, where Felicity is talking about how, this is me back in the time when I was angry at the world, and as somebody whose college days are quite sadly well past him, it's easy to look back at that time in my life, the younger days and such, when there were definitely moments when I was angry at the world and blaming my problems on people other than myself, when really a lot of it was really my own decisions, my own perspective of things. It's hard not to look back at the younger version of yourself and wish you could just kind of go over there, shake them, and talk a little bit of sense into them. But Felicity, I like that she just sort of accepts that, yeah, this is the person that I was, but I'm not that person anymore. I'm somebody different. I'm somebody better. And even though she's definitely down on herself at the start of this episode, thinking, I can't continue to be a part of Team Arrow anymore, she, through her own volition, gets over it. I mean, yes, circumstances do force her hand some, but this is a decision that Felicity came to ultimately on her own, and that was what it needed to be. Okay, this couldn't be Oliver talking her into it. This had to be a choice that she made, because otherwise it really robs her character of really control over her own life, and she's already been robbed of control over her own legs. So yeah, a lot of points to the writers for the way they handled that. It was real, it was emotional, and at times it was funny as hell. I really, really did love Felicity and her younger self snarking at each other. Now, the past. Now, that's also kind of a big thing going on with Dig and his brother this episode. I mean, the flashbacks are basically all about the Diggle brothers in Afghanistan. And we get to see that, yeah, Andy wasn't always that great guy, but he was also still, at the very least, a very brave man. And I did like that interplay. Andy's like, look, dude, I'm doing this army thing like you said. Show a little trust in me. They've in a very short time, really, I think, especially with this episode, done a lot to really flesh Andy out as a character. He's really starting to take shape as somebody who's interesting and complicated, and I like that. And this of course also plays into the whole thing of it took a lot of what was going on for Dig to be able to repair his relationship with his surrogate brother, Oliver. Now his real brother he is back, and they're starting to repair their relationship. And it all comes down to when the chips are really down. Andy's, Lila is, being held hostage and stuff. And he basically says, like, dude, you can't afford not to trust me right now. And Diggle's faith in his brother is rewarded. Now, I don't know about the legalities of actually letting somebody who's guilty of the stuff that Andy is guilty of out of lockup like that, but okay, cool. And I like how he basically they kind of deal with the fact that, like, well, hey, dude, your wife and your son, they're still here in this city. Aren't you gonna go see them? And he just says like basically says like, look, Dig, brother, I'm not ready for that yet. And Diggle's all like, yeah, cool, I understand. You need time. And then Lila just brings out Sarah, and Andy's like, oh hey, niece, cool. And that kind of into that situationship between Dig and his brother. At minute, Dig is like just so furious with him, and Andy, for not at times not unjustifiable reasons, is really angry with Dig. But I really like how Andy kind of puts it. The world is a messed up place, and I'm just doing what I do need to do in order to survive in it. But think about what he did in Afghanistan, where he risked his life to take out those bad guys. Well, that's not really the thing you do if you're not that reckless if you want to survive. There were other options there, but he went out there and did what he had to do to take out the bad guys. So I think, yeah, I mean, they were trying to attack him, but I don't think that was just about survival with Andy. I think part of it was genuinely wanting to protect his brother. So I kind of like the idea that having Andy floating around out there, somebody who is this somewhat morally ambiguous person, but with a really strong connection to Dig. It really does an amazing amount to give him, as a character, his own stuff to deal with. And of course, it's also always nice to see Lila a bit. Considering that she's Dig's wife and the mother of his kid, we see surprisingly little of her. Now, however, there is the definite possibility that that's going to change now that, almost certainly because of the Suicide Squad movie, they've killed off Amanda Waller. And I love how when they had that little memorial to her, Felicity's like, hey, remember the time she tried to nuke the city? That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, you guys are standing around actually mourning this woman, and it seems like you're kind of forgetting that she tried to destroy an entire city full of countless thousands of innocent people. And then Felicity says exactly what I'm thinking. I love when writers do that. There's like, I don't know if I could even say an objection, but there's a thought in your head that like, hey, shouldn't somebody say something about this? And then somebody on the show immediately says it. I love that. But yeah, Amanda Waller killed. Did not see that coming. I was actually kind of watching this episode and thinking, like, man, apparently they're just going to let her stay on Arrow even though they've got that Suicide Squad movie coming out. Maybe they hashed something out with the movie studio. But as the most trusted agent there, or somebody with a serious connection to Amanda Waller, well, Lila would be a pretty reasonable choice to step back into the whole Argus world and take over Amanda Waller's place. Well, you have to wonder, if Amanda Waller is such a big deal, why is she not in, like, Washington, D.C.? Why does she apparently hang out in Starling City all the time? Star City, I guess I should say. I don't know. La da 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 da. So let's see. Let's talk bad guys. We actually don't get to see Hive or Damien Dark this episode. Of course, that is slightly made up for the fact that he guest starred on Legends of Tomorrow briefly tonight. So yeah. Anywho, we we do get to see that Baron Ritter from the island. We get to see back how he was starting to finance all that stuff he was going to do on Lian Yu, which, tying that into what was going on with Afghanistan, that was good. I liked that. I was genuinely surprised, but it kind of makes sense. Although it's like, well, wait a minute. How much connection do we have between Afghanistan and the South China Sea? And then like, oh yeah, well, the China White had to be getting that smack from somewhere, didn't she? So it actually would be pretty cool if they could find a way to bring back Kelly Hu, but whatever. Anywho, jeez. Bad guys. Now, these dudes, Shadowspire, they're apparently from the Deathstroke comics, but I know nothing about them. I've never read any stories with them. For a second, when they said the name, I thought they said Battlespire. I'm like, wait a minute, isn't that like an old, really crap Elder Scrolls game? But no, it's Shadowspire. But apparently, this is something that's kind of a big deal in regards to its connections to Deathstroke, and it would definitely be very cool if we could get Manu Bennett back as Slade Wilson. I mean, Stephen Amell, I think he recently said on Facebook that he would be really excited if they could get him back. Now, granted, Manu's on that Shannara show that I don't know. One of my friends said that she liked it, but I haven't had the chance to sit down and watch it yet. Let's see. But apparently, from what I read, Manu Bennett was a little unhappy with Slade's last appearance, where Thea and Oliver took him down, and I have to say that I do agree that did seem a bit of a disservice to him as a character. But studios have smoothed over worse things than that, and I imagine if they presented a script to him that let Slade go out there and be a serious badass, I think maybe he might be able to change his mind. But who knows? Money, availability, you never know. Also, this episode, I kind of like that we had that moment with Laurel, and Oliver just sort of sitting around talking about, hey, Oliver, all this stuff that's going on with you. And Oliver tells her about Barry being able to time travel and stuff. And you kind of look at that, and then you look at where Oliver and Laurel were in season one, and it's just like it is so nice to see these two being able to just talk to each other like real people. Their past history is romantic history, I guess I should say, is not looming so hugely over things. Whatever might have gone on in season one, both of them have sufficiently moved on to other things. And I like that. I like it when the characters who have that kind of history together can get past it, move it aside, and just deal with each other as friends. I think that's the way people should try and be in real life, although circumstances do not always allow that. But it's always nice to see that in my books with fictional characters. And yeah, I think that covers everything I had to say about this episode. I really don't have a whole lot in the way of complaints about this one. It was a good, solid episode of Arrow. So, with that said, I'm going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Till next time, take care and have a good one.